This actually was one of the driving factors that made me Catholic.
And when you get inside, there's people worshiping the building, wiping the stones with their hair and their relics and their prayer beads, and they're wanting to get some of the DNA of Jesus. See this stone right here? But this is the statue of Peter, and they've kissed his feet so many times, they've kissed his toes clean off. If you look closely, there's no more toes. They've kissed them off with their lips.
Kamusta? Ako po si Jerga, host of this channel, and today we are reacting to a video entitled The Protestant Sermon That Turned Me Catholic. Dito sa channel, lagi tayong nagpi-feature ng mga iba't ibang bansa na yung mga dati Protestante ay nagiging Katoliko na. It is very interesting for me to see an individual kung paano siya nag-convert to Catholicism and ano yung experience niya. Nakaka-relate ako dahil ako mismo ay nag-revert to the Catholic faith bilang dating atheist. Kaya wag na tayo magpaligoy-ligoy pa. Panoorin natin ang video.
A portion of a sermon that my old church back in Oregon, Athey Creek Christian Fellowship, where he went on a tangent for about 30 minutes bashing Catholics, making fun of their traditions, talking about how ridiculous and borderline disgusting some of their buildings were. This actually was one of the driving factors that made me Catholic. I decided to just go ahead and research everything he was talking about. I'm gonna show you a couple of these clips and you can tell me what you think. Do these seem rude and disrespectful? Would this make you curious with all these bold claims? Maybe you wanna find out, is what he's saying true? Well, we'll find out.
Pause muna, and nais ko muna mag-react dun sa introduction niya. It seems like na-drive siya into Catholicism dahil dito sa sermon na ito na binabash yung Catholics. And this shows us kung gaano kahalaga yung pagiging charitable sa ating pakikitungo sa ibang tao. Ito yung isa sa lagi nating pinupush sa mga discussions. Kaya kung mababasa niyo yung aklat ko right here, Conservative ka ba? A 3-step approach to protecting the Filipino family from woke ideology. Pinag-usapan natin dito kung paano makipag-usap ng mahinahon and charitable. Dahil mahalaga ito, maging charitable tayo. Dahil we're not here to win debates. We're here to win people. So, pagpatuloy natin ang panonood.
And it's a 1,600-year-old building. Like there's not very many buildings you walk into that are this beautiful, that are, almost 2,000 years old. That's amazing. But really, I don't know whether to be impressed or grossed out. What do you mean? Well, when you go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, millions of people come and visit it every year. We brought Athey Creekers there. We're walking through the marketplace there in Jerusalem. But we finally get to the opening of the church. And when you get inside, there's people worshiping the building, wiping the stones with their hair and their relics and their prayer beads. And they're wanting to get some of the DNA of Jesus. See this stone right here? This stone that these people are rubbing their prayer beads and their little implements and stuff on. They claim this is where Jesus' body was laid and wrapped him up in his grave clothes. So in the Catholic tradition or the Greek Orthodox tradition, these are the things that happen here. Now, is this the place where it happened? Probably not. Who was the one who claimed this area to be the place where Jesus died and was buried and laid on this stone? Constantine's mother, who said, I'm kind of feeling like, this is where Jesus died and rose from the grave. And so they called it this place, and then they built a 300-something AD. They built a huge church over it and said, this is the place. Those people that are rubbing this and worshiping, I see people kissing this stone. But Brett, Jesus lay there. We don't even know that. And even if he did, could it be possible that it becomes really wrong, really, really wrong, to get more into the rock itself than actually the rock, Jesus Christ? And it gets really ugly. In fact, it gets worse from that. Once you go from there in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, chrome everywhere, okay, silver, gold, it's just God. You see the lady crawling on her knees underneath there to see where Jesus was buried, and people are lighting candles and all this stuff. As it turns out, it's hard to find Jesus there. The saints, There's saints everywhere, statues. There's, of course, Peter, who is the head of the church. And there is one Jesus you can find, and it's right here. I just put a picture in there. That's the Jesus, and he's honoring the Pope down at his feet. But this is the statue of Peter, and they've kissed his feet so many times, they've kissed his toes clean off. If you look closely, there's no more toes. They've kissed them off with their lips. Do you realize how many...
Okay, if you're liking this video at kung gusto nyo bang makapanood ng maraming videos gaya nito, mag-subscribe naman kayo dito sa The J. Aruga Show channel. Pakipindot na rin ang like button and hit that notification bell. Kayo, tanungin ko muna kayo, ano ang reaction nyo dun sa sermon na napakinggan nyo? Nag-agree ba kayo dun sa pastor or mas lumakas ang Catholic faith nyo? Write it down sa comment section down below. Okay, aside from that, marami pang sinabi si pastor. Pagpatuloy natin ang pakikinig sa kanya.
Classy.
You realize how many lips it takes to lick the toe off of a Peter? By the way, I guarantee if Peter were to come back and stand before St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, I guarantee Peter would rip his clothes. We can miss it. And it's not just the Catholic Church, it's the Protestant Church. We get into our relics and all our stuff. But even our religious practices can become evil and wrong. That's actually a building the Catholics built over Peter's house in Capernaum. Now, one thing that's interesting about this one is we do think this is where Peter lived, and there's all kinds of archaeological evidence for that. So they built this spaceship over this, and what a bummer. Like, you can't even see it anymore because the spaceship is covering the place where Peter actually lived. From there to Rome, Rome is just steeped in tradition and relics and what have you. I've been there a few times, and this is the Church of the Three Fountains. I brought Athey Creekers there once, and this is a beautiful church. But it commemorates, it's built because this is where Paul's head bounced off the ground. That's why you have a head of Paul there. It looks unconscious because it's separated from his body. The reason this is called Three Fountains is when Paul's head, this is what they say. These are the Catholics believe this. They built a whole beautiful cathedral for this because they believe when Paul's head hit the ground, it bounced 3 times. And every time Paul's head hits the ground, a water of fountain came from out of the earth. And that's what happened. They believe this work out, you know. So the guy got beheaded, but I measured from each place where the water was coming out, each of the 3 spots, and they're like 50 feet apart. And I was thinking, okay, so if his head, let's see, carry the one, his head had to be going like 80 miles an hour, hit all those spots. And, oh man, I just don't see how that's possible. And it's definitely not a way to get ahead. But sorry. But no, they really believe this.
So it seems like mas mukhang stand-up comedian itong si pastor than an actual pastor. And medyo may mga puna siya na nakakatawa naman in fairness. But in-acknowledge niya na magaganda yung cathedrals. And ito yung kulang sa mga Protestant churches. Yung beauty, yung art. And ito yung pinagmamalaki natin in many of the Catholic churches because we glorify God through beauty. Okay, let's continue watching.
Let's just make jokes at someone who literally was martyred for their faith. Oh, and this is the best part.
Take the bottom layer off and you get to that little piece of matzah bread, and then you turn it over and you can open up the cup and expose the juice there. And this is just what Jesus said, do this often in remembrance of me.
Let's take communion. Let me open up my tiny little plastic cup of grape juice and a little piece of bread because Jesus just said, do this in remembrance of me. It's just a symbol. I have several more videos that I can pull up for reference, but this was just one. I just wanted to point it out because this is the actual one that turned me Catholic, that made me go and say, you know, why is he so hung up about Catholics all the time? He always has negative things to say about Catholics. So sorry, Pastor Brett. It's just so rude and disrespectful. And you know what? Great, because they just lost one. Now I am coming home to the Catholic Church.
Praise God. Salamat at nadagdagan tayo ng sister in faith. Again, ang masasabi ko lang is let's be charitable. Dahil baka mamaya yung pagiging uncharitable natin, tayo naman yung nagda-drive away ng Catholics to Protestantism. Ang gusto ko dun sa kwento ni ate is nung na-turn off siya kay pastor, nag-research siya kung ano nga ba talaga ang simbahang Katoliko. Lagi nating sinasabi na The truth is like a lion. You just need to set it free and it will defend itself. Naniniwala ako na ang isang honest truth seeker, kailangan mo lang talagang tignan ang mga evidence and eventually, I'm sure, babalik ka sa simbahang Katoliko. Kung gusto nyo pa ng maraming good news like this, alam nyo ba na dumadami at dumadami ang mga Gen Z na nagko-convert to Catholicism? Yes, naging topic natin yan and you can watch it in the video right here.